Chapter 991, Alone Against Three Enemies. Death Dhyana Buddhist Master didn't even try to refute it. He did have the intention to retreat as Tang Shou said and naturally didn't want to waste time arguing. He gave a gesture to retreat, and the two handsome vampire-looking Caucasian men instantly grabbed Xingquo's shoulder and dashed backward all of a sudden along with the rest of them. The power of Dharma is endless, let sea of flames burn the demons. The Buddhist staff in Death Dhyana Buddhist Master's hand fiercely swept away. A black flame instantly set ablaze as he smashed several black metal balls to his front. A black mist then suddenly spread out in all directions as the balls exploded. The black flame seemed like a flame being ignited by kerosene as it touched the black mist. In but a moment, the black flame blazed in the dark of the night. At the same time, however, the blazing black flame combusted in a large area and posed as a great obstruction to Tang Shou and the rest. Suddenly, Xingluan paced a step forward and quickly grabbed a sharp dagger, cutting his finger. He forced several drops of his own blood to drip and threw it toward the black flame in front. At the same time, his other hand formed a seal while casting an incantation. In just a few breaths, the drops of blood he threw ignited and turned into a black flame that looked similar to the sea of fire in front of everyone. "Mr. Tang, please lead everyone to chase them quickly. I just cast a forbidden art of my clan so that you can open a passage in this sea of fire," shouted Xingluan hurriedly. His profile looked somewhat pale. Tang Shou's eyes lit up, and he shouted without hesitation, "Everyone, chase. We must completely kill them today, else there will be endless troubles later." Whoosh! 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 Numerous figures flickered and moved lightning fast toward the passageway amid the sea of fire. The path created by Xingluan in the sea of black flame could be said to be very perfect. In less than half a minute, nearly everyone present had crossed the passage and escaped from the sea of black flame. Lotus Sword. Overlapping layers of sword images from an immortal sword bloomed like lotus flowers. The flashing of cold light glittered even in the dark night. Tang An's figure flashed and appeared in front of the Death Dhyana Buddhist Master's group of 7. She was hardly able to block their escape route. But after she unleashed the lotus flower sword technique, the monk instantly sensed that if he were to rashly rush into the sword light, his chance of getting out alive would be very slim. He quickly held the Buddhist staff and hacked it forward. Light and shadow instantly burst out from his staff. The moment they clashed against the lotus made of swords, the flow of energy in the overlapping layers of sword energy turned chaotic. Right as the light and shadow dissipated, however, two figures flashed lightning fast and appeared in front of the sword lotus. One of the figures was a burly man in a long skirt with thick makeup caked on his face. He gave off a slightly demonic feeling. The cross flesh on his face constantly shivered, and the heavy killing intent on his face made him look particularly ferocious and devilish. At the same time, there was a youth with long hair and outlandish attire with a cross on his back as well who floated in the air and sent black smoke forward. 1,000 feather needles. Infernal punishment. The two men joined forces and launched a fierce onslaught in an instant. Tang An's body warped. Spatial energy suddenly distorted the space around her, and her figure instantly vanished, only to instantly appear in the distance. Space seemed to solidify as she distorted space and time, enormously slowing down the onslaught of the monstrous man and the outlandish youth instantly. At this moment, Tang An then appeared 10 meters in front of the two men. Her black-gloved hands seemed to be weaving an invisible big net, the lines of which were space cracks that came to envelop the two men. Spatial power. A shocked look burst out from Death Dhyana Buddhist Master's eyes. His skeleton-like figure suddenly rushed forward. The moment that he was a few meters away from the big net, he powerfully swept away his Buddhist staff to the front and threw his necklace, which had already lost a few beads. The string of Buddhist beads suddenly rose 100 times. The string then broke and the beads exploded. Crack. The space turbulence turned more chaotic. But the big net formed by the space cracks was also collapsing before it eventually dissipated and vanished the moment it touched the devilish strongman and the outlandish youth. Tang An's face slightly changed. She used to fight others by ambushing them using spatial and time powers to smoothly get the upper hand. But this time, in order to block Death Diana Buddhist Master's group, the monk met her attack head-on and had actually broken her technique. 3,000 slashes. Eyes filled with immense killing intent, Tang An manipulated her immortal sword to stir up the wind and mist in the surroundings. A wall of long swords then instantly formed and crushed down in front of her. Join power and block it. A horrified look was cast on Death Diana Buddhist Master's face as he shouted. He could sense an imminent fatal crisis headed right toward them. He instantly used everything he had at this time, frantically circulating the dark dermic power in his body. His Buddhist staff suddenly elongated several times as he resolutely brandished it to the front. At the same time, the outlandish youth manipulated the cross to constantly circle at a high speed. The black smoke seemed to turn into a ferocious devil that bared its fangs and brandished its claws against the oppressing wall of swords, while the devilish strongman made a seal with his thumbs and middle finger, forming a sharp line that looked like a sharp needle. However, due to extreme velocity that pierced the air, the black needle created an ear-piercing sound as it pierced through the onslaught of swords. Attacking is indeed the best form of defense. The three men were forced to join forces to use almost all their strongest moves to instantly clash against the bombardment of the sword wall, formed by the 3,000 swords technique. Puff. Tang An's body trembled, and her figure vanished into the distance. Her blood spurted out from her mouth and dyed the space where she was blood red. The Death Diana Buddhist Master Trio just used their bodies to form such a formation. Yet, the spatial force made them feel extremely constrained and restricted. Even though they succeeded in breaking Tang An's onslaught, their bodies still trembled as they staggered backward for a dozen steps, feeling faintly numb in their hands that held their weapons. What a powerful sneaky bitch. That bitch is so young, yet cannot be scoffed at. The monk tried hard to calm the chaotic flow of energy in his body as he vigilantly watched the surroundings and slowly spoke. The black woman behind the three men interjected with a grim voice, "Death Diana, we mustn't force our way out and clash head-on with these people if we don't want to die here. They are very powerful, so it's best for us to flee." As the words left her mouth, the two vampire-like handsome young men instantly rushed forward to the front. Cinquo, who was brought by them, realized that even Death Diana Buddhist Master, who was the most powerful man among these people, was not necessarily a match for that mysterious woman. It was a fact that he must admit, even though he was unable to acknowledge how great Tang An's strength was. Running away to escape this place. It was the only hope he had at this time. Even if Death Diana Buddhist Master's group were all dead at the cost of protecting him in this escape, he'd be very satisfied. At this time, he could finally realize his situation clearly. No matter how strong he'd become in the future, and no matter how many men he trained, it would be nigh impossible to have his revenge against Tang Xiu. This man was very powerful, and so were his subordinates. Beyond a doubt, retaliating against him was like an egg trying to crush a boulder. However, he still had a chance to eliminate Singluan and his guardian elders completely. He could even erase the Dark Shaman clan if Singluan were to use the clan's power in the future. There are some more left. Those fucking Singli and the 13 Shaman Guardians. They just yielded to the threats of the enemy and gave up on me. They too must die in pain by torture and endless suffering. Eyes full of cold, chilling thoughts, Cinquo was quickly healing himself with the faint black mist that covered his body as the two vampire-like youths grabbed him. He would be able to heal most of his injuries if he was given another 10 minutes. His wounds wouldn't affect him in any way even if he must be engaged in the fight. A few kilometers away, atop the tens of meters high water tower, Zhou Dequan secretly heaved a sigh of relief and now looked relaxed. He turned around to glance at his men who also acted in a similar fashion, and then sighed, "Seriously, I never thought so many fearsome people like them existed in this world. We have been lucky to not provoke any of these kinds of fearsome existences while we were on the run all these years. We must be very careful in the future to not easily provoke their kind. We'll probably be killed at a moment's notice if we provoke such fearsome people. That was a good reminder from you, boss. The middle-aged man nodded and forced out a bitter smile. Comparing us with them is like ants in the face of lions. It's useless to compare us with them. To them, killing us is just like pinching ants. Zhuo Dequan's eyes glittered, and he said in a heavy voice, "We mustn't go out our way to provoke these kinds of people, yet it's a must to find ways to improve our strength. We never knew that such fearsome people existed in this world before, hence, we felt that we were already very powerful. But now, we know that we're like frogs in the bottom of a well looking at the sky. Anyhow, I got an idea in mind now, though I don't know whether it's feasible for all of you." "What idea do you have, boss?" asked the middle-aged man with a confused face. "Well, since such fearsome existences exist in this world, that means that there's a way for us to be stronger and become powerhouses, right? I did a Fentang show before. But I have Jing. If I can apologize and express my goodwill to him, perhaps it's possible to build a little friendship. What do you think about the chance of me obtaining any means to become stronger from him by spending a lot of money later?" In a flash, the few men who were loyal to Zhuo Dequan had glowing eyes. It would be very great for them if their boss truly could obtain the means to become stronger from Tang Xiu. It was a good thing that could make them wake up from their dreams laughing. "Please try it, boss," said the middle-aged man with an excited face. Zhuo Dequan lifted his hand and stroked his chin slowly. Then, he nodded and said, "Such a chance must not be missed, so I must grasp it. So let's." "Boss," another man called out and interrupted him with a low voice all of a sudden. "What's up?" asked Zhuo Dequan with knitted brows. While pointing to another direction, the man whispered, "Another group of people is coming. Also, given the number of cars, the number of people this time is probably a lot more. It should be similar to the number of people brought by Xingguo previously." Chapter 992, Dealing with the Aftermath. Zhuo Dequan grabbed the binoculars and aimed at the direction pointed by his subordinate as shock yet again immediately covered his face. The continuous arrival of groups of people to this place tonight was just a surprise. And now, another group with so many people came again. Could it be that they also wanted to join in the fray? Are they Tang Xiu's men, or Xingguo's? "Take a look at the limo in the middle, boss," added the middle-aged man. "It looks like Kanaja's car." The dull look fleeted on Zhuo Dequan's face as it was replaced with incredulity. He spoke out, "You're right. That must be Kanaja's since he's the only one who has this type of limousine in Bangkok. But what is he coming here for? There's no way he'll be able to join this kind of battle given his resources and ability. Could it be that he's come here for us and not because of those people?" asked the middle-aged man again. The notion made Zhuo Dequan frown deeply. He carefully gave it some thought for 2 minutes before he shook his head, saying, "It's unlikely. The debt deadline is not due yet, and he won't trouble us as he has yet to get the money back. There's no reason for him to come to me at this time. My guess is he must have been involved with those who just battled, but not Tang Xiu, I think." "Why's that?" asked the middle-aged man, confused. "Tang Xiu wouldn't have come to our place to stay here after he entered Bangkok illegally in secret if he had a deep friendship with Kanaja. That's why," said Zhuo Dequan. "Kanaja is a definite leader of Bangkok's underground forces. The places he has for such purposes may be more covert and safer than ours." At the coconut plantation entrance. After more than 10 cars slowly stopped and parked, Kanaja got out from the limo in the middle of the convoy. As he walked to the interior of the estate and saw the scene in the surroundings, a stunned look covered his face and disbelief overflowed in his eyes. "God. This place was fine when I came here yesterday. How can it be in such ruin now? It's like some terrorist organization just attacked this place?" But even if they used bombs, it's just impossible to be this ruined. A black-suited big man with a scar on his face exclaimed in horror and shock. Kanaja knitted his brows and asked in a deep voice, "You mean this place was still fine yesterday and became like this today?"
Yeah.
The man nodded and said, "It was just fine yesterday and now has turned into ruin." Eyes gleaming, Kanaja realized that it must be the outcome of the battle between Tang Xiu and Xingguo's group which had ruined Suodequan's sight. He already knew that Tang Xiu's side was very strong, while Xingguo's side contained all the Dark Shaman clan's practitioners who also had similarly powerful strength. But the scene made it obvious that their power was far from what he had imagined. However, with this place destroyed, what about the outcome of their battle? Who ended up the victor? Tang Xiu and Xingluan, or Xingguo? Whoosh! A figure flashed and appeared in front of Kanaja and his men. The man didn't even flinch upon having guns trained at him and just asked in a deep voice, saying, "Who's Kanaja?" Kanaja raised his hand to stop his men. He paced forward and said, "I am Kanaja. May I know who you're, mister?" The black-robed young man with the magic staff said in a deep voice, "I'm young Master Xingluan's subordinate. He and Mr. Tang are currently after Xingguo and some other enemies with the rest. Mr. Tang ordered me to wait for you here to pass his message. He said he needs your assistance." Chasing enemies? In an instant, Kanaja knew that Tang Xiu must have won the battle against Xingguo. He then put on a bit of respectful expression and asked, "And exactly what assistance could I offer Mr. Tang?" He said that the battle with Xingguo's side has ruined this place, something that can't be justified. He hopes that Mr. Kanaja can help in dealing with the aftermath, said the youth. He'd like Mr. Kan to explain this incident to Suodequan, cremate all the dead bodies, and rebuild this coconut plantation. He'll reimburse the rebuilding cost. Only then did Kanaja understand Tang Xiu's intention. His smile grew wider, and he crisply replied, "Please tell Mr. Tang that I have a little friendship with this coconut plantation's owner, so Suodequan will naturally give me face. I'll assign some men to deal with these dead bodies, but there's no need for Mr. Tang to reimburse the reconstruction cost for the plantation. It will be a gift for his victory. If so, then I'll pass your message to Mr. Tang. I will trouble you with all that." The youth nodded and said, "Anyway, I still need to gather with the rest, so I shall take my leave." Kanaja nodded and watched the youth leave quickly. His smile turned much wider, and he eventually let out a loud laugh, saying, "This is great. Very great. Men, get your ass moving and work. Clean up all the dead bodies here and leave no trace." With that said, he took out his cell phone and searched for Suodequan's number before dialing it. A few kilometers away, atop the tens of meters high water tower, Suodequan was still observing Kanaja through binoculars as he heard his mobile phone in the pocket suddenly ring. Huh? A call? Kanaja is also calling now, could it be? He then took his cell phone out and looked at the caller on the screen. He immediately frowned and said, "It's really Kanaja. It's him who called me, but what exactly does he want?" "Don't pick up the call at this time, boss," said the middle-aged man. Suodequan thought for a moment and shook his head. "No, it will be bad if I don't pick it up. Besides, Kanaja doesn't know where we're hiding it now, so I'll pick up his call to figure out his purpose." Having said that, he pressed the answer button and smilingly said, "What's up calling me this early, Mr. Kan?" "Suodequan, I'm outside your coconut plantation now. Immediately come here to meet me if you've got nothing to do," said Kanaja. "If you're there, then you must know what it has become, Mr. Kan," replied Suodequan bitterly after a moment of silence. "I took my men to flee when I noticed something before my place turned like hell. I don't want to die by going there now. Hey, I dunno why Mr. Tang picked your place as a battlefield, but I tell you that I'm not coming to your place for troubles," said Kanaja coldly. "He entrusted me to deal with the collateral damage here. You can be sure that I'll take over this coconut plantation if you don't move your ass here. Helping Tang Xiu? Zhuo Dequan's complexion changed with a look of incredulity. He just couldn't understand one thing. Tang Xiu definitely knew Kanaja and they seemed to be on good terms. Yet, why did he follow his daughter to hide in his place before then? Hold it. A thought popped up in his mind and he suddenly understood one thing. Kanaja was indeed the godfather of Bangkok's underground forces, yet he had too many people under him with their own vested interests. For fear that some people under Kanaja sold his whereabouts, then he came to him, a bystander? As he thought up to this point, only then did he truly regret that he refused Tang Xiu before. He cleared his throat and replied back, "Please wait for 10 minutes, Mr. Kansas. I'll catch up with you there. Frankly, Mr. Tang has a good friendship with my daughter and I'll help you too since he needs your assistance." A confused look flashed in Kanaja's eyes. He didn't expect Tang Xiu to have a good friendship with Zhuo Dequan's daughter at all. Apparently, the way he treated Zhuo Dequan must change later. 5+ kilometers away. Tang Xiu led the troops and finally arrived to where Tang and was coughing up blood. The murderous intent in his eyes turned more intense as he instantly controlled the divine sword, and flashed forward toward the enemy lightning fast. Array on. You all must die. The divine sword transformed into layers of thousands of sword images, as they torrentially steamrolled forward toward Death Dhyana Buddhist Master's group of 7. This time, Tang Xiu no longer held back and unleashed all his power. His figure appeared over 100 meters in the air the moment the thousands of sword images struck forward and cast various spells and techniques. Groups of flames emerged and encaged the area tens of kilometers in the surroundings, while series of lightning bolts came blasting down from the sky through the sea of fire. Shoo, shoo, shoo. He then took out 8 array discs from his interspatial ring and quickly threw each into 8 directions. At the same time, he made use of the street intersections, surrounding trees, street lights, and the small artificial lake on the left side to arrange the octagonal desolation array. Simple yet intricate runes formed the array pattern that quickly transformed into one whole shape with interlaced lines of runes, emitting vague energy fluctuations. In just 10 seconds, Death Dhyana Buddhist Master and his group were stranded inside the newly arranged array. Jing sure. Tang Xiu shouted as the octagonal desolation array activated and completely encaged the surrounding area. Jing sure instantly appeared before Tang Xiu and respectfully asked, "Your command, boss?" "You have read many ancient scriptures and several books of arrays that I wrote during your time with me, and you've studied them, haven't you?" asked Tang Xiu. "Can you recognize what kind of array this is?" Jing sure was stunned and looked dull for a moment. Although he had studied a lot of content about arrays, he had yet to arrange any basic array and rarely saw any of them in reality. He immediately glanced around at the array and spent 10 minutes thinking about it. Afterwards, he answered with a guess, judging from the root, pattern and outlined runes. "Everything is similar to the octagonal desolation array, isn't it, boss?" "You're good." Tang Xiu nodded and said, "You can recognize this array, so you know only one person can enter and control it. Can you control it smoothly and kill them with it?" "I can do it." Jing sure nodded with a serious face. Chapter 993, The Remaining Few. Being discreet and meticulous was Jing sure's usual nature in doing things. He never boasted about anything if he wasn't sure of his own abilities. He had studied the contents of arrays and fully memorized them. He had even arranged every position and every angle of the array in his head. "Enter the array," shouted Tang Xiu in a deep voice. Jing sure took a step forward, and in the next moment, he appeared in the center of the octagonal desolation array. When he saw a fireball rushing toward him, his foot moved in a flash and he instantly appeared a few meters away. At the same time, his line of sight quickly changed and he found the spot he must be positioned at in just a second. Break. Quickly, for fireballs appeared by him, but the immortal sword that hovered around him directly broke them. He moved again and evaded another group of 4 fireballs before appearing at a certain position. Suddenly, all the fireballs that were aiming at him inside the array dissipated as he stood at a safe position. At the same time, Death Diana Buddhist Masters group who was being trapped inside the octagonal desolation array had a hard time avoiding the bombardment. Lightning bolts, rainstorms, hurricanes, and soil spikes came at them from time to time. It was simply countless weather changes. Yet it made them badly battered and enormously consumed their cultivation power. We must break this fucking array formation. Otherwise, we'll keep on being stranded inside. The outlandish youth who controlled the Black Cross shouted. A wound continued to bleed on his face, and he had just barely escaped a hurricane attack. Death Diana Buddhist Master himself had been observing the array since the beginning. His injury was the lightest among all and his strength hadn't been affected that much. He was even able to help his companions while avoiding the bombardment. Yet, even after spending 10 minutes observing the array, he was still unable to find the crux of the array at all. We only got one method left now, said Death Diana Buddhist Master with a heavy voice. What is it, Death Diana? Asked the outlandish youth hurriedly, pleasantly surprised. We have all been injured here. We won't be able to persevere much longer if we can't break this array quickly. The only means we've got left is the stupidest method, using brute force, answered Death Diana Buddhist Master in a deep voice. Unleash everything you got and attack the same spot to break this fucking damn array. Got it. Agreed. The rest nodded and quickly moved closer to the Death Diana Buddhist Master. The monk then pointed to one spot and said, I can sense that this spot is the weakest point in the whole formation, yet most of the attack forms from this spot as well. We'll need to fend off all the attacks from that direction in order to break this array, but we also must increase the intensity of our strike to create an opening there. I'm sure we can destroy this array as long as we succeed. Attack, now. As Death Diana Buddhist Master shouted, all of them unleashed the rest of their remaining power toward the bombardment that was aiming at them. The might of the group of fireballs mixed with the lightning bolts was unquestionable, yet they were able to destroy all of them. Their residual power was also bombarding the energy shield, creating ripples on its layers which then led to thin cracks on the shield. The moment the array sent out another barrage of attack, however, the shield fluctuated and the cracks were automatically restored, while the ripples caused by the shock also disappeared. The outlandish youth looked disappointed. However, the instant after, he keenly spotted the difference and shouted in a pleasantly surprised voice, the array's striking power is weakening.
Yeah.
We didn't break the array with the last barrage, but we've definitely damaged it. Death Diana Buddhist Master grinned and said aloud, that's why its striking power is now weakening. Let's keep attacking. We can overload this array with our attack, and it will forcibly be broken sooner or later. The monstrous burly man shouted, what are you waiting for? Keep attacking. Puff. Just as he was about to finish speaking, an immortal sword that moved like a snake struck from the dark and unknowingly pierced his heart. The sword vibrated and swayed, ripping his body into pieces of meat as they exploded, creating a gruesome scene of splashing blood and flying body parts. Jinshir's eyes were full of bloodlust as he appeared. He immediately stepped back after the strike and then vanished. What the fuck is going on? The scene made the faces of Death Diana Buddhist Master and the rest change drastically. None of them was able to spot the ambusher. They only felt a cold sensation and a wave of energy fluctuations. When they turned their heads in a hurry, they only saw the savage big man's body explode. The bizarre situation made their complexion very ugly, while fear now bred deep inside them. The outlandish youth with the big cross subconsciously leaned toward Death Diana Buddhist Master while vigilantly observing the surroundings. He didn't even try to block the fireballs and lightning bolts that were aimed at him. At the same time, the black woman suddenly removed her cloak and swung her hand. The black cloak then formed a wall made of black mist and blocked the barrage of fireballs and lightning bolts. My dark coat can only fend off the strikes for half a minute. Everyone, hurry up and attack the previous spot. Otherwise, we must resist the upcoming barrage from the surroundings once it gets destroyed, shouted the black woman. Attack again. Death Dhyana Buddhist master was keenly aware of the crisis they faced at the moment. He raised his Buddhist staff without hesitation and powerfully swung it forward. Jing, who was hiding in the concealed spot and planned to keep ambushing, was suddenly a bit frustrated after the black woman used her dark coat as a shield. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Tang Xiu, the enemy got a protective magic tool, boss. I've got no means to keep striking them at the moment. Also, they're attacking a certain point in the array and they will soon break the array if they keep at it. Coldness overflowed in Tang Xiu's eyes as he stood outside the array. His figure flickered and instantly entered the decagonal desolation array. His footsteps moved in a bizarre fashion as each step was unusually peculiar, yet his seemingly dancing figure was not affected by any attack inside the array at all. In but a moment, he appeared close to Death Dhyana Buddhist master and his companions. Interesting bunch. He then unleashed the divine sword. A fearsome crushing aura erupted, and the sword was enlarged by 100 times instantly, forming a terrifying sword nearly 100 m long which then smashed down toward the dark coat. Boom. The dark coat was crushed to pieces. Jing Shi's figure suddenly emerged behind the black woman and his immortal sword swept away. The female's expression was full of horror as she was decapitated. Apart from the Buddhist monk, the rest of the group frantically scattered outside the radius of the shockwave of the divine sword. Tenebrous Domain. Xingguo, who had now recovered his power, cast his technique. Although he had been injured, it was no longer serious. But his restlessness shot through the sky upon seeing Death Dhyana Buddhist master's group suffer such heavy losses. His escape and a chance of survival depended on them, hence, he was forced to act as he formed a black mist to cover a large area around them. He was also still able to observe everything inside this domain, protecting himself against enemy attacks. Break. Break. Death Dhyana Buddhist master also rushed to the previous spot. Using his Buddhist staff, he powerfully slammed the weakest point of the formation. As a dozen cracks appeared on the shield, he threw the staff through the cracks as it cracked it open and created an opening. Run fast. The monk didn't even spare a glance to help the rest and quickly dashed forward through the opening. Run. Escape quickly. The rest of them were as though seeing a chance of escaping bestowed by the heavens. They sprinted toward the opening, including Xingguo who had just cast the Tenebrous Domain as he followed behind the Death Dhyana closely. You wanna run? Did you ask for my permission? Chillingly shouted Tang Xiu. The divine sword turned into countless swords yet again and overwhelmingly crushed toward the direction of the crack. In the blink of an eye, the last two vampire-like men were pierced by the overlapping sword energy and fell outside the crack. The moment the array was broken, Tang Xiu and Jing Shi appeared next to the two dead bodies, whereas Death Dhyana Buddhist master, Xingguo, and the outlandish youth frantically fled toward the distance. Guang and that Buddhist monk and Xingguo must die, no matter what. Tang Xiu shouted loudly as he flashed forward to chase the trio. Affirmative. Tang Guang flashed forward extremely fast. His speed was even several times faster than Jing Shi's. After overtaking Jing Shi, he followed behind Tang Xiu in the pursuit of the trio. However, the air in front of Tang Xiu and Tang Guang kept rippling and a faint aura could be sensed from it, just like there was another creature that smoothly traversed forward a bit faster than them. A look of surprise flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes as he thought inwardly, Tang Yan's speed should be the fastest under Qimei and Yan in the whole everlasting feast hall. Even though I have numerous movement techniques, I'm sure she can surpass my speed with her spatial technique if her power is at the peak of the golden stage. This heavy loss is all because I saved you, Xingguo. It's your turn to repay us now. Stay here and stop them. As long as you don't die this time, I swear you'll be our brother later. Death Dhyana Buddhist master's heart thumped harder and faster. He could sense the vague and faint fluctuations that quickly approached them, so he guessed that it was the mysterious female assassin they encountered before. Xingquo's face enormously changed. He didn't expect that Death Dhyana Buddhist master would actually make such a request at this time. It was obvious that staying here to stop Tang Xiu and his men only meant one thing, his death. But he can't die here. Even if he must offend Death Dhyana Buddhist master and would need his antidote 6 months later, he just couldn't stay here and die. The world was so vast, and he could find a place to hide if he could escape and survive here. Certainly, he could also return to the Dark Shaman clan as a last resort if worse came to worst. He believed that his father wouldn't sit still and watch him be killed by Tang Xiu and Xingluan. Chapter 994, The Final Stand. Endowed with high intellect, Xingquo's brain revolved faster as he faced the imminent crisis of life and death. The betrayal of Death Dhyana Buddhist master made him furious, yet he didn't lose his reasoning. His killing intent surged inwardly as he took a roll of golden threads from his sleeve. Bind. The golden thread unfolded and instantly shot forward toward the monk's feet. The moment it bound his feet, Xingquo quickly pulled it back powerfully, dragging the monk's feet and causing him to fall and fling backwards. In nearly an instant, he had overtaken Death Dhyana Buddhist master's position and had bolted to the front. Damn you, Xingquo. Death Dhyana Buddhist master was so furious that his heart was inundated with endless regret. He had scouted Xingquo as a very talented youth and thus took a long journey with his companions to follow up in their effort to recruit him. Who would have thought that he must lose 6 companions just to rescue this fella, only to get stabbed in the back at this moment? Right as Tang Xiu's lightning-like figure appeared tens of meters away from the monk, he slashed the divine sword forward. At the moment when the monk frantically avoided his strike, an immortal sword appeared out of the blue, aimed at his neck. Although the slash wasn't able to decapitate him, it still left a bleeding wound on his nape. Tang'an herself had been injured and she practically ignored it due to the death sentence Tang Xiu had given to Death Dhyana Buddhist master, preventing this monk's escape at all costs. Therefore, she kept chasing this monk closely. Even though her moves didn't have overwhelming power, it was still powerful, making the monk unable to spare his attention on anything else. Tang Xiu, we have no enmity whatsoever, why are you still vehemently aiming for the kill? Growled Death Dhyana Buddhist master furiously with a disastrous face while avoiding Tang'an's barrages. In the countless battles he had encountered, never once had he been so fearful and vexed as he was right now. Tang Xiu flew up and stood midair as he fiercely retorted, we had no enmity before, Death Dhyana. But you just created it by being a busybody, leading to this situation. Xingquo is but a dire wolf full of ambition that I must kill. Besides, did you forget what you just said? Humph, rather than having you nagging my mind, might as well kill you now to spare me any worry. You really want to shut out any reconciliation, shouted Death Dhyana Buddhist master. Don't force me to unleash my forbidden art, for I'll drag you to hell with me. I'll definitely kill that fucking bastard Xingquo myself if you let me go now. I just put on a strong front before you previously, how would I dare retaliate against you? Just let me go on my way. Sword of Divinity homage to heaven. At the monk's pleas, Tang Xiu didn't want to bicker more. Instead, he simply hacked the divine sword forward to intercept the monk's movement to escape. Death Dhyana Buddhist master was in a grave crisis involving Tang and who kept appearing and disappearing mysteriously to strike him. A look of madness filled the monk's eyes. He gritted his teeth as the Buddhist staff in his hand suddenly split into 2 parts. A centipede half a foot long then shot out of it and appeared in front of Tang'an's face in the blink of an eye. Death Dhyana Buddhist master was more prepared than Tang'an and brandished the 2 parts of his Buddhist staff to seal the left and right movements of Tang'an. While standing midair, Tang Xiu's expression greatly changed. His body dived down suddenly as his hand formed a circle gesture, manipulating the divine sword to shoot at the Buddhist monk. It was the only move he could do at the moment since it would be too late for him to rescue her unless the monk retracted back his strike. Empty shell vanishing art. Death Dhyana Buddhist master roared. His body suddenly flickered to the side as the two halves of his staff pierced Tang An's shoulders, whereas the centipede that shot at her finally fell on her nape and bit her neck. Puff. However, a rain of sword light also pierced the monk's body. Right as he crazily spurted out blood, his figure vanished and appeared 4+ meters away before he staggered and fell to the ground. Is it teleportation? What he did surprised Tang Xiu inwardly. Yet, he ruled out this idea the moment after, since a teleportation technique could only be achieved by those who had broken through to the nascent soul stage. For those under that cultivation level, it's impossible to do it. Death Dhyana Buddhist master's power was only comparable to the middle stage of Golden Core, so teleportation was impossible. Further, teleportation techniques could reach a far greater distance, whereas what he did was only 4+ meters away, meaning that he had just shown profound footwork. Die. The sword elongated and flashed forward as though carried by the wind, leaving its afterimage. Death Dhyana Buddhist master's body violently trembled a few times. He looked down at his chest with despair on his face. The spot where his heart was located was hollow, instead replaced by a fist-sized hole. There were also wounds on his shoulders and legs. Tang Xiu. The monk shot a stare of deep hatred towards Tang Xiu. His life force rapidly left his body, yet he still flew up into the air as though wanting to unleash all his remaining strength to kill Tang Xiu. Humph. The same intense killing intent also flew out from Tang Xiu. He had no idea about Tang An's current condition now, so he instantly unleashed 2 explosion charms upon seeing the monk who threw himself to him. Boom. Death Dhyana Buddhist master's body shook greatly. A look of despair was evident as the divine sword came slashing his neck. Further, a blood-colored blob suddenly appeared which was sucked into the sword. At this time, Tang Xiu could clearly sense that the divine swords might have been greatly increased and his sense of control over its power greatly improved. His body flickered a few times before he appeared next to Tang An, who had taken out a dagger and killed the centipede. He then grabbed her wrist to check her pulse. A vicious venom? Tang Xiu's complexion changed. He swiftly took several silver needles out of his interspatial ring and instantly sealed up several acupoints in Tang An's neck. At the same time, his other hand quickly ripped Tang An's robe, revealing her shoulder in order to pierce the last acupoint there. He quickly grabbed her shoulder and hurriedly used his nails to pierce a certain spot on her flesh. Grand Master. Tang An was shocked and looked puzzled. Don't speak, and don't circulate your energy, ordered Tang Xiu with a deep voice. The centipede poison is very potent, it has flowed into your shoulders. I must force it out of your system. Upon hearing this, Tang An no longer felt strained. Instead, a hint of shyness flashed on her face and she silently nodded. The blood must be forced out and some veins must be sealed up. He retracted back his finger that sealed the spot, while his other hand slowly traced Tang An's shoulder to control the blood and extract it out into his palm. The extracted blood was black and smelled a bit pungent originally, but turned red after a few seconds. Shortly after, Tang Xiu threw the extracted blood away. He continued by holding Tang An's neck, while his other hand's finger began pinching and stroking her neck, followed by him pulling out several needles that pierced the acupoints. Blood also sprayed out from each point that was originally pierced by the needles. It kept flowing out, along with the constant pinching of Tang Xiu's finger, although the extraction was now much slower. Whoosh. A few minutes later, Tang Xiu loosened his grip on Tang An and looked at the dozen people around him, shouting in a heavy voice, "What the hell are you doing here?" After Xingguo. Tangguan has gone to chase him, boss, replied Jinshi in a low voice. Our speed is too slow to pursue him. No matter how slow you are, just go and kill him, scolded Tang Xiu with a deep voice. I don't care if the road is blocked or not, you must not lose him. He'll become a big headache later if we don't kill him now. The moment his order came out, Jing and the rest immediately moved toward the direction of Xingguo and the outlandish youth. Xingluan and his men also followed suit. Xingluan was the one who was impatient to see Xingguo die, since he would have no worries left in the future after he took over the Dark Shaman clan's patriarchal seat. After that, Tang Xiu took out the holy healing pill from his interspatial ring and stuffed it into Tang An's mouth. Speaking in a low voice, "I've forced out the poison from your system, it won't affect you for the time being. But your injuries are quite serious, so you must recuperate for some time. I'll protect you. Just chase Xingguo, Grand Master. I'll be fine by myself." Tang An shook her head. "No. Your condition is critical." Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "No one knows whether there's another enemy coming here. We're going back to the coconut plantation. Kanaja should have arrived there if my guess is correct, so we're heading back. I'll be staying there to protect you after we get there." "All right." Tang An no longer refuted Tang Xiu's suggestion and let him grab her waist as they flew into the sky, and headed toward the ruined coconut plantation. At the coconut plantation, Kanaja was smoking a cigarette and stared at the helpless-looking Zhuo Dequan before him. He wouldn't have given him face previously. But, after learning that this man's daughter was on good terms with Tang Xiu, he had no option but to treat him differently. "Speaking bluntly, you rejected Mr. Tang's request before and drove him out of your place?" questioned Kanaja.
Yeah.
"It's because I didn't know his identity before, neither did I know what kind of relationship he had with the Huang," answered Zhuo Dequan with a helpless face. "The Huang family is my mortal enemy. It is a powerful clan that has many experts and a formidable force. I thought that I would suffer more than I would gain if I were to give him shelter. Damn it. You really just wasted a huge chance. That's so fucking stupid, you know that?" Kanaja shook his head and sighed, "Alas, forget it. Nothing I can do about it. This place is yours, so tell your men to deal with the damage here quickly. Of course, I'll also assign my own men to dispose of those dead bodies, and I won't neglect my own part to rebuild your place since Mr. Tang asked me to help you with that. You can deduct the reconstruction cost of your place from the money you owe me." Chapter 995, Favors. In front of Kanaja, Zhuo Dequan felt like he was suppressed instinctively. Had it been a decade prior, he would have been able to stand upright when facing this man. However, he only had trivial energy in Bangkok, whereas this man was much richer, more powerful, and better than him, so he could only lower himself. "You can just leave the reconstruction to me. It's my place, so I must be the one to handle it." "I appreciate your intention, but I have to decline," said Zhuo Dequan. "You misunderstood me." Kanaja's complexion changed and he seriously said, "Rebuilding your site is what Mr. Tang wants me to do, so it's I who'll find the construction team and provide the fund. You owe me some money, so I'm going to deduct it from your debt. I hope you know what to report to Mr. Tang about it later." Zhuo Dequan immediately realized Kanaja's intention. It was to express goodwill to Tang Xiu. If Tang Xiu was someone who always paid his grace back, he would take it as a favor. As he came up to this point, Zhuo Dequan forced a smile inwardly. As people said, it's easy to repay the money debt, but favor and grace were the most difficult to pay. He had that chance to have Tang Xiu owed him a favor, yet he just wasted it away and could only have regret after he lost it. It was the most regrettable thing he had ever done in this world. If God was ever given him another chance to come again, he would have never missed it. If he could add such opportunity to what he already had, he'd have absolutely given his all to work under him, even if he must regard him as an ancestor. Yet now, he could only that bits of regret bit his heart. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly shifted as he saw Zhuo Qing approaching with his 2 adorable grandsons and several trusted men, who escorted them. "Qing." Zhuo Dequan strode to welcome them. At this time, Zhuo Qing was so shocked and paralyzed. She never dreamed that the place she just left had turned into ruins. Could it be that father's guess was correct, that Tang Xiu is in cahoots with the Huang and came here to retaliate them? What is going on here, Dad? Asked Sui Qing with a bit ugly expression. What else? It was because of Tang Xiu, replied Sui Dequan with a bitter smile. It's true. The reply made Sui Qing depressed somewhat. Then she said astringently, I'm really sorry, Dad. But Divine Dr. Tang is famous in China and is a good man. I just can't believe that he's colluding with the Huang. Could it be just a mistake? The question made Sui Dequan stunned. He could see the bitter expression on her face and immediately let out a dry smile. It's been a big misunderstanding indeed, Qing. But it was on my part who did that. Mr. Tang never colluded with the Huang. I even believed what you told me, that he's our family's benefactor since he has helped us mediate the grudge with the Huang. What I just said it was caused by Mr. Tang was due to the battle between him and his enemies here. We just kind of got implicated by it. Sui Qing's eyes bulged out as she exclaimed, What did you say, Dad? You mean Divine Dr. Tang didn't have the intention to ruin our place and it was caused by the battle with his enemy? How is he now? Is he injured? Even if you care about him, you don't need to ask so many questions at a time, Qing, said Sui Dequan with a dry smile. Besides, I really do know about all those. Thanks for the worries, Miss Sui. I'm fine. Tang Xiu floated down from the air while carrying Tang'an and quickly appeared in front of everyone. As he released Tang'an's waist and held her arm, he let out a faint smile and said, I apologize for ruining your sight, Mr. Sui. But you can rest assured that I'll compensate you for it. No. Please never mind it, Mr. Tang, said Sui Dequan hurriedly. You fought your enemies and you didn't intend to destroy my sight. As he sat up to there, he suddenly remembered Kanaja and immediately turned his head to look at the man. His heart skipped a beat upon seeing his face turned a bit ugly. If he said that Tang Xiu didn't need to compensate him, it was very likely that Kanaja would lash out at him. He could expect this man to take revenge on him after Tang Xiu left. Certainly, Tang Xiu could tell there was something between the two men and smilingly said, Well, I may have to trouble you this time, Mr. Kansas. But you can consider it as I owe you a favor and you can expect to have my assistance in the future once. Upon hearing Tang Xiu's statement, Kanaja was overjoyed inwardly and he smilingly said, That's very kind of you, Mr. Tang. To be at your service is an honor for me. You can rest assured that I'll cremate all the dead bodies later. I'll also find the construction team since you already asked me to rebuild this place. I can tell the construction team to work overtime to have it rebuilt quickly. You can leave all the issues here to me and feel relieved. Then I'll have to trouble you for it. Tang Xiu nodded and said, Just call me after you rebuild this place. I'll reimburse you and transfer the money to your account directly. Please don't, said Kanaja quickly. You're my guest here, how can I let you pay for it? Please consider the renovations cost as a token of my gift for you. Also, I've already arranged to invite you to my exquisite fallen petal tomorrow night. Would you like to come? The exquisite fallen petal cruiser? The name made Tang Xiu remember the cruiser on the Chao Phraya River which rumored as the paradise on earth. However, he still had many issues to deal with and there was no time at all for anything else, so he said, You've seen the situation here today, Kanaja. Cinco has escaped and another fish also slipped away. I'm afraid I don't have yet the time to accept your invitation for now. It's better to wait until we have Cinco and all my enemies in Bangkok been dealt with. But I'll prepare a gift for you when I visit you later and we'll dine by then. Tang Xiu's refusal didn't make Kanaja unhappy at all and even felt more excited after hearing it. He repeatedly nodded and said, I'll be sure to prepare my place after Mr. Tang has tended to your business then. All right, you can tend to business first. My grand disciple has been seriously injured and I need to find a quiet place to treat her, said Tang Xiu. Zhuo Dequan, who had been looking for any means to express goodwill to Tang Xiu, immediately interjected upon hearing it. Mr. Tang, I still have an underground storehouse even though my place is ruined. You can use it for the treatment if you'd like to. His offer instantly made his men look shocked, confused, and also worried. If so, then I'd like to trouble you to lead me the way. Tang Xiu nodded. Zhuo Dequan replied and then ordered his men before leading Tang Xiu and the rest to walk toward the ruins. When they came to a certain collapsed building, dozens of strong men quickly cleaned up the surroundings, revealing the entrance to the underground space. Screech! The entrance door was sounded and a downward staircase slowly appeared in front of everyone. While leading everyone down, Zhuo Dequan explained, I've been using this underground space to store gold actually. The interior is quite messy, but it's very clean and I also have placed various furniture and appliances inside. I often came here whenever I need to think about something. An underground space to store gold? Tang Xiu's face shifted and he quickly used his perception to survey the surrounding. The large size of the warehouse surprised him, nearly 1,000 square meters with massive gold bars neatly stored on the shelves inside. The interior also had decent ventilation installation as well as looking clean and well equipped with needed objects. Please come here, Mr. Tang. Zhuo Dequan, who had been observing Tang Xiu's facial expression until everyone came to the entrance, only found that Tang Xiu just glanced at the gold, and then ignored it, causing him his hope and expectation plummeted. This is a good place. Tang Xiu nodded and said, recuperate well, and we're staying here for some time. Yes, Grand Master, replied Tang and respectfully. She then strode into the room and closed the door from the inside. She was not used to be in the sight of others for a long time and could have left already if she wasn't with Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu then turned to look at Zhuo Dequan and lightly said, would you mind telling me what are you storing so many golds here for, Mr. Zhuo? Are you buying it at a low price to sell them at a much higher price? Speaking frankly, I own a gold mine which I mine a lot of gold ores from annually, Mr. Tang. Some of it is exchanged for cash and the rest is stored. Though the plummeting gold price recently kind of causing me to stop selling my gold reserve, said Zhuo Dequan with a dry smile. Due to that, I'm planning to use gold to pay off a lot of money I owe Mr. Can which I haven't been able to pay back for a while. Tang Xiu was surprised before nodding. The gold price has been mediocre some time indeed. But for you to own private gold mine is kinda rare and unexpected. I bought that gold mine with quite a price long ago. Although I've earned the investment back for quite some time, the gold or reserve is also dwindling. I originally planned to exchange all of them when its price goes up, but as of recently, it seems impossible. Care to tell me the current gold price? Asked Tang Xiu. It's 290, answered Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu then turned to Kanaja and asked, do you mind if I want to buy gold from Zhuo Dequan, Kanaja? I know that he's gonna use it to pay the debt to you with a lower price, but I can buy it for a higher price than the current market price. I don't mind about that. Kanaja directly shook his head and said, he doesn't owe me that much anyway.